Well, it was old school.
Well, how many times did Browns run out of bounds?
Never.
Wait. Okay, go.
Good morning. Welcome to United States Sports Academy and our weekly sports talk program. I'm Steve Butler, your host. With me today is Dr. Fred Cromartie, our Director of Doctoral Studies, and Dr. Brett Simmermacher, our Chair of Sports and Coaching. Behind the camera is Ms. Sarah Weber, our producer. And before we're going to talk about NCAA basketball and the upcoming tournament day. This Sunday is Selection Sunday. And we'll see. No, next Sunday.
Yeah,
Next Sunday is Selection Sunday.
Yeah, tournament
10 days from now. Before we get started, we'd like to give best wishes to the kids at Gulf Shores High School. You know, Mardi Gras is a big deal here. In fact, it's such a big deal that we were closed yesterday. It was a holiday for us. A lot of things in Baldwin and Mobile counties are closed. A lot of people don't know that the Mardi Gras actually began.
It's a holiday in the southern part of the state, all the way down to Louisiana.
Yeah, but Mardi Gras actually began in Mobile, Alabama, and was made big and famous by the folks in New Orleans. But it's a big deal here. And the very first parade yesterday, they had a horrible accident where a truck that was part of the parade slammed into the Gulf Shores High School marching band. Originally sending 12 kids to the hospital, 4 in critical condition. The last I heard, there was only 5 kids still in the hospital, and 3 of them were in critical condition. So we give our thoughts and prayers to those kids at Gulf Shores High School. It's going to be a big emotional event, even for the kids that didn't get hit because of their buddies and their friends and their colleagues that are in the hospital today. Give our weekly update. UConn women are at 103 and counting. They got 1 more regular season game, and then 3 games in the American Athletic Conference tournament, and then up to 6 games in the NCAA tournament. So if they win them all, they will finish the season with 113 consecutive games. And then I think it's important to remember that this was supposed to be a rebuilding year for UConn. And
They rebuilt all right.
yeah, and like Carol Lawson said in the second game of the season, if you want to get UConn, you better get them this year, because next year they got 2 superstars, 1 transfer from Duke and 1 transfer from Kentucky, who will be eligible to play next year, and it's going to be, and they're not losing anybody, so it's going to be really
But that's interesting. See, we talk about the parity of basketball and everything, especially in women's basketball, but now you have 2 notable recruits that are transferring from notable programs to UConn.
Yep. And for all the right reasons.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. As we said, a week from this Sunday, they'll announce the brackets for the NCAA tournament. One thing they did this year, they put out a couple of basically where we stand. If the brackets were released today, this is where we'd be. Bracketology. I do have on our list here. I have Joe Lunardi's as of yesterday. This was updated on 28 February. His top 4 seeds for each region, and I think Joe Lunardi is one of those guys we can take seriously, because last year he was 63 for 64 in picking teams in the tournament. So that's all he does. He's made a living out of guessing who's going to be in which bracket. Anyway, the Midwest, the top 4 seeds are Kansas, Kentucky, Arizona, and Duke. You talk about 4 traditional blue blood programs there. The West is Gonzaga, Oregon, Florida State, and Purdue. East, Villanova, Louisville, Florida, and West Virginia. And then in the South, North Carolina, Baylor, UCLA, and Butler. So of those regions, Fred, which one do you think will be the most difficult?
I'm in the Midwest, going up against Kansas, Kentucky, and Arizona. My goodness, you're talking right now. All 3 of those teams are playing great basketball. Duke has his ups and downs and that, but they've got their core nucleus back, and they could be a tough team down the stretch. Coach K's teams are notoriously good at tournament time and that. So I just think that the Midwest is just loaded. It's phenomenal.
Brett?
I agree. I think the Midwest is going to be the toughest with those 4 teams.
Yeah.
On all the lines in the Midwest, it's going to be tough to get out of there.
And Kansas, as overall number 1 seed, will be playing pretty close to home.
Exactly. But see, the thing of it is now is, like we said, going into everything right now, you got to look at how teams are really performing, and you've got some teams that are performing at a high level. Kansas is one of them. But I'm telling you, you better watch out for Kentucky. if their big man continues to play the way that he's playing, that is going to be something that every team that they play is going to have to contend with. That kid was phenomenal last night. And he's been phenomenal like the last month. I mean, you're talking 2015.
Yeah.
20 points, 15 rebounds.
Well,
It's like,
The second half against Florida, if Kentucky plays the way they played the second half against
Yeah.
Florida on Saturday, they could win it all easily. And then last night they came back from 19 points
19,
down
yep.
against Vanderbilt, the largest deficit that Kentucky's faced since Calipari has been their coach.
yeah. And Vanderbilt didn't realize what happened to him.
Yeah.
Neither did Florida. I mean, I was watching
Well,
the
yeah.
Florida game, and it was like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Boom, 12-point lead.
A little bit of a swing in the Florida game, though, was with officiating once again. It kind of flowed towards Kentucky's way in the end. That's why they went to the foul line so many times in the end of the game and that. So, that changes the complexion of the game. And speaking of fouls, that's what changed the complexion of the game between Gonzaga and BYU. If Gonzaga had won, they'd still be number one and the number one seed. But they lose and fall to 4.
I don't know.
And it wasn't like BYU was a bad team.
No, I don't
They're
know.
21 wins.
They're still the number one seed. I'm not sure they would have been the number one overall seed because they weren't in either one of the pre-brackets. They weren't the overall number one seed. That was Kansas one time and Villanova the other.
But see, I think they probably would have been because they would have been still the only team undefeated at that particular time.
There's a good argument to be made for that. I'm in agreement. I think the Midwest is loaded. Which of the brackets do you think would be the easiest for a team to make a run to the Final Four?
I think the South.
Yeah.
I think the South. And I think the team that you got to look for in the South that could be a real scary team to play, UCLA.
Yes.
If they run and they're scoring, let me tell you, boy, people say that's not the way the game of basketball is supposed to be played. Obviously, you never saw Paul Westphal, excuse me, when he was at Loyola Marymount, and they were running it up and down with Hank Gathers and that. So, we've had...
You were right the first time there was Paul Westhead.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, and I've watched UCLA play twice in the last week, and you look at North Carolina, Baylor, and Butler as the other 3 seeds in that region. North Carolina scored 43 points last night, and everybody's talking about them as a
That's because Virginia played defense.
yeah.
Defense does a lot.
Virginia, and Baylor's another team to talk about. But yeah, I agree. I'm not sure how Butler got in there as a one of the top 16 seeds, but we'll see how that plays out.
If Baylor plays under control, they're a great team. When they're out of control, it's like they don't even know the fundamentals of basketball. That's their problem.
Interestingly enough, the 2 teams we talked about, Kentucky and UCLA, the folks out in the desert that have all those really big casinos and hotels because they know what they're talking about. They actually, as of this morning, Kentucky was the favorite in Las Vegas to win the tournament at 6-1, and UCLA was the second choice at 7-1. Interestingly, UCLA before the season started, you could have got them at 80-1, 8-0-1. So
Wow.
some smart
There's a
people.
little analytical processes going on there with the casinos.
Yeah,
They got to make it favorable where they get the bets and the house wins. So that's it right there.
Well, a lot of people think that like when they look at the line and they see UCLA +6 or -6 against USC, that Las Vegas thinks UCLA is 6 points better than USC. That's not what they think at all. But they set the line where they can get the most money bet on both sides.
Exactly.
And that most of the time they win.
So the house always wins.
The house doesn't always win. They've had a couple bad days, but there's a reason why
A couple of bad days.
there's a reason why you can get a 24-ounce New York strip for $3 in Las Vegas.
Well, you know what?
They don't
If
need to make money off food.
2 bad days out of 365. That means the
Yeah.
house is winning 300. Come on now.
It's kind of interesting. I got the odds here to win the championship. Kentucky at 6, UCLA at 7-1, Kansas, Villanova, and Duke at 8-1. And then you look down the list, and then you look at Joe Lunardi's bracketology, and then you look at the AP top 25, and there doesn't seem to be congruence between the 3. So they're kind of all over the place. In fact, not Joe Lenardi, the last time the group released their thing, UCLA was a 4 seed, while they were ranked number 5 in the country.
Mhm.
So AP had them number 5 in the country, and the committee had them as a 4 seed, which means they have them somewhere between 13 and 16, which didn't seem to make a lot of sense. We talked about the Midwest and the South. What about who do you like in the West? We had the top 4 seeds there: Gonzaga, Oregon, Florida State, and Purdue.
I like Oregon. You know, but then again, I wouldn't be surprised. I've seen Florida State live and in color, and they're
not-
huge.
Yeah, they're huge.
They are big and
They're
athletic.
fast. But see, the thing of it is,
They can do it
once,
all.
but sometimes they play out of control.
They do.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that's going to help a team like Florida State and Virginia and teams like that are the conference that they play. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no off night. Even when you're playing the lower half of the league.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, North Carolina State goes into Duke and beats them at Duke.
Mhm.
Clemson's had some big wins on the road in the ACC. I mean,
Last night was the 5th year in a row that North Carolina lost at Virginia.
Yep.
yeah.
There's
I
no.
mean, it's just that league is so tough from top to bottom.
They may end up with 10 teams in the tournament. They got 7 in the top 25 right now.
Yeah, they have 7, and well, they said there's definitely going to be 10, but there's a possibility it could be 11 teams there in the
Yeah.
tournament.
I just think, I know Gonzaga is the number 1 seed, but I just think there's strength of schedule. And,
Yeah, but
but
I'll tell you what though,
it's a crapshoot.
it is a crapshoot, but Purdue's playing well in the Big Ten.
They are.
Purdue was playing very, very well, and at the beginning of the year, nobody even factored them in.
Well,
I mean, they're supposed to be in the middle of the pack, but
Didn't they clinch a share?
he could be the play. Yeah, exactly.
Didn't
In
they
the
clinch a
country,
share of
yeah.
the title?
What's that?
Didn't they clinch a share of the title, of the Big
Purdue?
Ten
Yes,
title
yeah,
last
they
Yeah,
night?
Jay Billis said that on TV.
That's a great story in itself, Swanigan.
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't he living in his car or something
Yep.
like
He's got to say Oregon with this shirt.
that?
You know, well, it's interesting that
From
you
like
mentioned
Kelly
Oregon because the Pac-12, those top 3 teams have just been battling it out
Sure.
all season, and they've been really good games.
Yeah, I mean, you look at
UCLA,
it,
Oregon,
this
and
week
Arizona.
This week they're ranked 3, 6, and 7. Last week they were 4, 5, and 6.
So the
So, and they asked Jay Billis which one of those. I was listening to it on the radio on Saturday. On the pregame show is simulcast on ESPN Radio. They asked him which of the 3 Pac-12 teams. He said all 3 of them are Final Four talent, but he likes Oregon.
Oregon.
The best of those 3. So
They're really good.
Yeah,
Well, Oregon's the deepest too, though,
yeah.
in talent-wise.
And they've got the bona fide superstar.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. The one bracket we haven't talked about is the East, and the 4 top seeds there, according to Joe Lenardi, are Villanova, Louisville, Florida, and West Virginia.
Villanova's playing great. They played pretty good all year long in that. But again, don't count out Louisville.
well, if they make it to the regionals in New York, and Jay Wright has a lot of fans in New
yeah.
York.
Jay Wright will be the best dress coach in the
Well, he's one of the best dressed coaches now, but coaching, they don't get out there and play. The fact of the matter is that again, Villanova's playing well, but Louisville has got
Again,
great talent.
ACC.
Yeah, well, there's no question about it. Yeah,
Week in, week out. But I still think Villanova's going to win the East.
The Florida's playing well.
They are.
Yeah.
I just think Villanova's too strong.
Yeah, Florida had that devastating injury. They lost one of their best players for the rest of the season. We'll
And
see what
you
happens
know, count on Huggy Bear either.
No.
no.
Did you see a game a couple weeks ago where he
Yeah.
He's got his heart, his
Yeah.
heart monitor
Yeah.
started fluctuating on him. So he's got to get that under control. But
Well, for those folks watching from the local area here, this is Alabama and Auburn country. If you want to
neither are going to make it.
if you want to risk a few dollars on those teams, Alabama is at 500 to 1 to win the national championship. Auburn's at 2,000 to 1, and our friends at the University of South Alabama are. It just says greater than 10,000. I think that's as high as their little calculators go.
Well, see, that's one of the things. Speaking of South Alabama, that's one of the things that a lot of people are talking about right now because the rumor is that they're looking to get rid of their coach because he hasn't really produced since he's been there. The fact of the matter is that Okay, you get rid of him, but who are you going to bring in? And then I say Mark Godfrey. Okay.
Mark's not coming here.
Yeah, but see, we know that because Mark is smart enough to realize that regardless of whether it's South Alabama or not, you're not going to be able to really recruit here. This area, anytime there are big time recruits in this area, they're not going to South Alabama, they're not going to Alabama, and they're not going to go to Auburn. The coaches at Auburn and Alabama have gotten lucky and gotten some talent from here, but the vast majority of them are going to go
Right.
to big time programs out of this area. So you get a handful of kids. The problem is, we all know what we compete with down here. Football's God. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, you know, it's not looking good for Matt. We had Matt was on our show last year right before the tournament. Great guy, good coaching pedigree. You know, came from Butler where they went to back-to-back
Mhm.
national championship games, and just hasn't been able to win enough games. I think at South Alabama. It'll be interesting to see. You know, the last 2 years in a row, Arkansas State 2 years ago, and who was it last year from the Sun Belt? That actually.
The guy that's at he's at Texas Tech now, but he took a job somewhere else and he was only there like a couple of days, and then the Tech job came up and he
Yeah.
left. Who was he coaching? I thought that was Arkansas. Arkansas Little Rock.
Little Rock,
Yeah, Arkansas Little Rock.
Arkansas Little Rock.
Yeah, but they you know they
Little Rock is terrible this year.
Yeah, they've had two teams. They've only had one team make each the last 2 years, but both times they've won a game. The Sun Belt this year.
Well,
This year it looks like the best team is UT Arlington, and they've got a bona fide big time player
Yeah,
there.
they're 23 and
and,
6.
and you never heard of the kid, but see, they took a chance on that kid. That kid wasn't even on anybody's real radar in that, and now he turned out to be a great player. In the Conference USA, conferences, you know, that are smaller and not a part of the big time, those guys, it's just like football. When you look at athletes, Alabama and Auburn and all the SEC and big time schools are always focused on 3, 4, and 5s. Okay, basketball's the same way. They have it rated, you know, 1 star all the way up to 5 star. South has got to look at if they can bring in 4 or 5 of these 3-star guys and maybe a
That are
4-star.
borderline
That's
4-star.
exactly right. Then you've got a nucleus that you can build from, and the focus is that they said the coach right now brought in a few kids from the Midwest and things of that nature. Okay, that's great, but if they're not notable players that are on that national radar, it's really not going to do you any good. You've got to have somebody, 1 or 2 that are known.
The kid at UT Arlington, his name's Kevin Herbert, and they think he'll be a late first, early second round pick if he comes out this year. One of the things you have to look at about UT Arlington is right now St. Mary's from California is ranked number 20 in the country, and they've lost 3 games all season. They lost twice to Gonzaga and once to UT Arlington. UT Arlington went there and beat them. And they actually beat them in, I think they play in Moraga, California. They actually, UT Arlington actually beat them by more points at their place than Gonzaga did. So UT Arlington could win a game.
Speaking of St. Mary's, though, they could creep up on Gonzaga in their conference tournament.
Have you looked at the bracket at all? The
Mm.
early bracketing?
Yeah.
It's interesting in the East. If Louisville and Minnesota get put on the correct line, the Patinos could be
Yeah,
against each other
Yeah.
in round 2.
Another note for local teams in D2, University of West Florida. The women are moving on in the Gulf South Conference tournament, and the men lost in the first round.
Okay.
But they were doing really good this year,
Yeah,
the men's
and
team.
They'll be that next year. West Florida will have their second year of football. UAB is bringing football back.
Mm-hmm.
I saw an article online that ranked the 130 D1 football teams from number 1 with Alabama to number 130, and they had UAB at number 130 as the worst program in the country. But in the write-up, they said we really don't think UAB will be here at the end of the season because they've got a great coaching staff. But
It's not just a great coaching staff. They got a few players that are going to make a mark on.
yeah, they've stockpiled some players. You
Yeah.
know, the kid from Spanish Fort High School.
Both of them,
Yeah.
the brothers, the Johnsons.
Tyler Johnston sat out last year. He decided to go to UAB and be their quarterback when they come back. But he hasn't lost a game since 5th grade. That's probably
Yeah.
going to change next year.
Probably.
But you know, the kid's a winner. and now his brother's who's an all-state linebacker, who 1 year behind him. So they'll both be freshmen when it comes to eligibility next year.
His brother holds the record for most tackles in a career as a linebacker here in the state of Illinois.
Cool.
Well, in the just to wrap this up, in the AP top 25 right now, we have 7 ACC teams, 4 Big 12 teams, 3 Pac-12 teams, 2 SEC teams, and 2 Big 10 teams. That's 4, 7, 11. 18 of the top 25 are from the Power 5 conferences, and then we got 2 from the Big East, 2 from the West Coast, 2 from the American, and 1 from the Missouri Valley. So basketball, I think the teams we've seen over the years, that one of the mid-majors in basketball has a much better chance of making a run. And you know, I don't know if you count the Big East in that, what group you put the Big East in basketball, but Villanova obviously won it last year, and they're going to be one of the top seeds this year. It'll be interesting to see. You know, things are going to change. You know, even Joe Lunardi's bracket's going to change because somebody in one of these small conferences somewhere is going to enter the tournament at 13 and 15 and win 3 games in a row and be a conference champion and take one of those slots.
Well,
you see it every year.
Another interesting thing is outside of the tournament is whether or not, because there's a little bit of a group of folks now questioning whether or not basketball should start later in January, and whether or not they're going to be able to apply some pressure to say, hey, we don't want to compete with football, we don't want to compete with the NFL or college football and bowl games and all that good stuff, and we're going to start the season later. But I don't think it's going to happen because CBS has got the contract, and what do you run up against in April?
Baseball.
The Masters.
Yeah, and they've also
They don't want anything to compete with the Masters.
they've spent a lot of money on March Madness too. All right,
Oh, yeah.
everybody.
You want this day in sports trivia or sports history?
This day in sports history, fire away.
Wilt Chamberlain is the first NBA player to score 30,000 points. On this
30,000.
day.
All right. So how many have scored 30,000 since then?
I don't know.
I think Wilt's fourth now on the
Yeah, he's
all
fourth.
time list. Kareem.
Yeah, Kareem Jordan.
This is 1972.
Malone.
Colin Malone second. I know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we hope everybody has a great week in sports. The last week of the regular season in college basketball. The spring training games are starting to kick off in Major League Baseball. And college baseball is
And softball or
Yep, we're going to start another year in baseball. Josh Hamilton's not going to be playing very much, and David Wright is injured again.
We'll see how it goes. We hope everybody has a great week in sports, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Central Time from the campus of the United States Sports Academy. Have a good week in sports, everyone.